He got the nuclear weapons plan kicked into high gear and turned down an offer to become president. Welcome to the story of one of the greatest and probably the most infamous scientist of the 20th century, Albert Einstein. A scientist known for his contribution to science and having the most exorbitant hairstyle. Before we begin, I want to tell you about this video's sponsor, me. Yes, why? Because I'm a sad 42-year-old man trying to become a content creator.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. Farewell.
Our story begins in Ulm, Germany in 1879. Little Albert was born on March 14th, and already we see a sign of brilliance. His early years were filled with unusual interests. While other kids were playing with toys, Albert was fascinated by a compass. At just 5 years old, he thought, wow, how does this work? Is it magic? Well, spoiler alert, it wasn't magic. It was physics. This embodies one of his most famous quotes, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Young Einstein struggled in school due to his independent thinking. But can you imagine a teacher trying to explain the Pythagorean theorem to a kid who's like, yeah, but what if the triangle is relativity? Einstein was also an avid violinist. He often used music, especially Mozart and Bach, to relax and think about his work. He once said, "Life without playing music is inconceivable for me." After probably driving his maths and physics teachers to near insanity, he failed his first attempt to enter the prestigious Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. He excelled in maths and physics, but did poorly in other subjects, particularly languages and history. Yet, after studying a bit more, he eventually earned a place at the Polytechnic Institute in Zurich. Armed with only a couple of good jokes, a vicious hairdo, and modest knowledge of calculus, he graduated in 1900. Then the real struggle began, finding a job. After months of rejection, and no, we're not hiring creative thinkers, he finally landed a gig at the Swiss Patent Office. Yeah, you heard me right. Einstein, the patent clerk extraordinaire. His office cubicle must have been like Disney World for nerds. In 1905, Einstein experienced his annus mirabilis, or miracle year. He published 4 groundbreaking papers. In one of them, he introduced the theory of special relativity and the iconic equation E equals mc squared. Now, for those of you who skipped physics class, this equation means that energy and mass are equivalent. In layman's terms, if you have a lot of mass like that birthday cake you can't resist, you also have a lot of energy to regret life's choices and deal with type 2 diabetes. Einstein also worked on the photoelectric effect, which contributed to the development of modern film technology. His 1905 paper on the effect earned him a 1921 Nobel Prize in Physics and paved the way for advances in quantum mechanics. Fame came knocking after those papers, and Einstein was hardly prepared. He was a quirky guy with even more quirky hair. He played the violin and had a fondness for sailing. Interesting fact, he couldn't swim, probably out of fear that the water would mess up that glorious hairdo of his. He didn't take kindly to the fame and famously said in an interview, and I quote, "When I was young, all I wanted and expected from life was to sit quietly in some corner doing my work without the public paying any attention to me, and now see what has become of me." In another interview, he would mention, and I quote again, "Why is it nobody understands me, yet everybody likes me?" He would also regularly refer to famous individuals as being part of a cult of individuals. This would remain his outlook on fame throughout his entire life. Einstein became a global celebrity, and everyone wanted to know what was in that wild hair of his. In 1915, he completed his general theory of relativity, which explained how gravity wasn't just a force, but a curvature in the fabric of space and time. His life outside the spotlight was a bit complicated, though. He married, and I apologize for butchering this, Mileva Maric.
Mileva Maric.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Who was also a physicist. Together they had 2 sons, Hans Albert and Edward. But it turns out they had different views on life and ended up splitting in 1919. And then also in 1919 came a solar eclipse, during which starlight was observed bending around the sun, proving Einstein's theory of relativity. In the science community, this is equal to one of the biggest "I told you so" moments.
I told you so. Told you so. Told you so. Told you
In the early 1930s, a time of growing unrest, Albert Einstein, the world-renowned physicist, began to feel the tremors of change shaking Germany. Einstein, a vocal critic of the Nazi Party, watched with alarm as his home country slipped into a dark era. Once celebrated in Germany for his contributions to science, he now found himself increasingly marginalized and targeted due to his Jewish heritage and outspoken views. Being about as much of a fan of Hitler as I am of shaving, in 1932, Einstein accepted a guest lecturer position at the California Institute of Technology, hoping to avoid the escalating tensions at home. Leaving Germany with only a few personal belongings, he planned to return, assuming that his brief absence would give him time to weigh his options and see how things unfolded. But in January 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power, and Einstein's hopes of returning safely vanished. News reached him in the United States that his Berlin apartment had been raided, and his property was confiscated. Friends informed him that his name was added to an official hit list. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Einstein decided to never return to Germany. In 1933, he formally renounced his German citizenship and accepted a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He became a vocal advocate for peace, civil rights, and scientific freedom, a true rock star of humanity. He formed a close relationship with civil rights leader W.E.B. Du Bois and spoke out against racism, referring to it as America's worst disease. And speaking of humanity, in 1939, Einstein was the one who, in a letter, basically told President Franklin D. Roosevelt, "Hey dude, I think Nazi Germany is developing some atomic weapons. Maybe it's time you get your ass in gear and get it done sooner." His infamous letter led to the kickoff of the Manhattan Project. No biggie, right? Just casually saving the world while making fashion statements with that awesome hair. He eventually secured his safety in the United States when he received his US citizenship in 1940. On the 14th of March 1949, Albert Einstein celebrated his 70th birthday. However, Einstein didn't feel the need to celebrate his birthday. "It is a known fact that I was born, and that is all that is necessary," he said. Friends, colleagues, and complete strangers still felt the need to send telegrams, cards, letters, gifts, and of course, elaborate birthday cake. The infamous tongue photo that so many people think of when Einstein is mentioned was also taken at Einstein's birthday party, but this happened to be his 72nd birthday party at Princeton, where a ton of press and photographers were gathered, and Einstein, not enjoying his birthday to begin with, was frustrated at best. As he left the party, he got into a car while being barraged by photographers. He screamed at them that he'd had enough, but as press being press, they rarely respect the wishes of the famous. So Einstein figured, "F*** it," and stuck out his tongue, immediately turning away afterwards. One lucky photographer by the name of Arthur Sass from United Press International was lucky enough to capture the moment. Einstein ended up liking the picture so much that he asked for 9 additional prints to be made, which he sent out as greeting cards. Most were cropped to just feature his face, but one remained as is and was signed by the infamous scientist, which ended up being sold at auction in 2017 for a whopping $125,000. In 1952, Einstein was offered the presidency of Israel after the death of the first president, Chaim Weizmann.
Chaim Weizmann.
No offense, but you are a stupid asshole.
He declined, stating that he lacked the necessary experience for such a role. This dude was offered a presidency without needing an election and turned it down. Let that just sink in for a second. Albert Einstein passed away on April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, soon after a blood vessel had burst near his heart. When asked if he wanted to undergo surgery, Einstein refused, saying, "I want to go when I want to go. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly." Now, for those of you who regularly consume happy dust, he essentially stared death in the face and went,
I gotta go now. Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.
After an autopsy, Einstein's body was cremated and his ashes spread in an undisclosed location. The world mourned Einstein's death, and at his request, his office and house were not turned into memorials. His legacy still impacts our understanding of the universe to this day. After his death, Einstein's brain was removed without his family's permission, by the pathologist Thomas Stoltz Harvey, who then preserved it for scientific study. Parts of it were distributed to various researchers, but the ethics of this are still debated to this day. Einstein wrote in 1951, "What has remained is the relentless work on difficult scientific problems. The fascinating magic of what work will continue to my last breath." Which basically translates to, I'm not figuring out everything for you, it's time for you to do some work for once. Whether you're a science nerd, more of a casual observer, or a hairstylist, remember it's okay to think differently. Like Einstein, always stay curious, have fun, and dare to laugh. If you enjoyed this cosmic journey with one of our most influential scientists to ever live, the best way to support the channel is to smash that like button, subscribe, and let us know your favorite Einstein quote in the comments below. You can also buy me a coffee through the link below, but either way, I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for watching. Be a good Homo sapien and stay curious.